welcome back. While the endgame may be delayed slightly, your test still continues, Mr. Leach. I'm sure the response has been great to your first 2 trials, but your 3rd trial begins now. No more messing around.
Yeah, fuck you, buddy. Chucky'd make you his little bitch. Puppet bastard. So Saw 3 tells the story of a grieving father being put to the test, all the while Jigsaw and Amanda are making the final push for Jigsaw's life. Welcome back, everybody, to the Saw review series. We're on round 3 now with Saw 3. If you guys have not already checked it out, I have the reviews for Saw and Saw 2 already on my channel. Thank you for checking those out if you have. And I'll put this out there as I've done the other videos. I'm going to have to say this every single time. If you are a Saw fanatic that does not like hearing any criticism whatsoever of this franchise, this is probably not the review series for you, because I've never really been a huge fan of Saw. I've been putting off this review series, but now I want to get it done. I want to do the series that a lot of people have asked me to do, especially with all the talk coming out of Spiral. Felt like no better time to do it than now. There are some of these films that I do like, and there is a lot of these films that I have not revisited since I first watched them. So I could have some differing opinions from what my first viewing experience was. Some of them I might actually end up liking quite a bit, but just as a little warning out there, not the biggest Saw fan. So now you know. Now let's talk Saw 3. But before I get into the film itself, please like and share this video if you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it so much that you want to check out some more, hit that subscribe button and buckle your ass in for the rest of this Saw review series. And if you enjoyed it so much that you want to help contribute to this channel and contribute to what I do on here, please check my link down below for the best way to do that. My Patreon page link, a lot of different tiers on there with a lot of different perks, but a very good and a very cool way to help out this channel and help this channel grow and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only, such as polls, review requests, Blu-ray digital copy codes. All of that is Patreon exclusive, so if you're interested, check that out. For everybody else that's watching the video that's interested in talking about Saw 3, time to do that. So now we're on the 3rd chapter. We're well into a franchise at this point. I remember when I watched this for the first time, I was like, okay, clearly this is going to be something that's going to be coming out every year now. Saw was a big surprise. Saw 2 was cool that we got a follow-up to that story. By the time this one came out, it's going, okay, this is successful. This is something that they're going to milk until it dies. Is it going to die on this film? I'm not sure. Let's pop it in and find out. And I actually enjoy Saw 3. There's things about it that I don't like. It certainly has its flaws like the other 2 films, and certainly like the films that's going to come after this, unless my views change on that. Saw 3 does have some cool things about it. Notably, Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith as Jigsaw and Amanda, I think, are actually really good in this. I like the fact that they get a lot of focus. I like the fact that the dynamic of those 2 characters, the relationship and the ideologies of those 2 characters take front and center as far as the storyline and as far as the traps and as far as the overall kind of the twist at the end. That's the test, is Amanda's willingness to actually let somebody live and not be a psycho bitch, and Jigsaw allowing her to basically choose the fates of everybody there unknowingly. Pretty cool, but I'll get more into that. Their characters and their performances I thought was very good, and the fact that they take what I would say most of the focus of this film, story-wise and screen time-wise, it was a nice little change of pace. You got a good amount of Tobin Bell, you got a good amount of Amanda, before you knew she was a psychopath in the 2nd film. But this one, it definitely feels like they're the focus, and it's cool. I also think it was an intriguing setup having this main character who is the main victim or the main testee, the one who is being kind of put through these traps, being a grieving father, somebody whose kid was killed by a drunk driver, and he's basically put to the test with all these people that have kind of contributed to his grief. One woman who just didn't do anything to help the case and didn't say anything to make this guy pay, the judge that passed down the sentence, and then at the end, the guy that actually killed his son. Putting him through the test of making him value his life again, even though he has had this tragic occurrence. But not only that, seeing whether or not he is able to forgive these 3 people and save their lives. I just thought it was a cool little spin, because before this, it was all about saving your own life. It was all about valuing your own will to live and kind of, rising to the occasion to escape these traps. And there's a piece of that in this, but it's also about valuing the lives of others and valuing forgiveness and rising to the occasion to be able to set people's mistakes aside and value the fact that they still have a life to live. They can change, they can pay for what they've done, they can have sorrow for what they've done, and allowing them to do that by pulling them out of this trap and not letting them freeze to death, get drowned by a bunch of pig carcass slushy or getting every single limb in their body twisted about 3,000 degrees the wrong way. Going along with that, this movie might have the most gruesome trap in the entire franchise. Again, a lot of these films I have not revisited since I first saw it, so it's been years. There might be one that's even worse, but the rack trap, where you have the guy who's in that machine and it slowly twists his limbs around all the way till it snaps and just starts spinning on his skin, and then you get the part where his head starts to do it and it just goes all the way around. That trap has always stuck with me. I mean, I've seen Saw 3 probably 3 or 4 times. And even though it's been years since I've watched it, that trap still sticks with me, and I still think about it. And when I think of Saw 3, to be honest, that's probably the first thing that pops in my head, is that rack trap. Gruesome. Iconic. And my final positive for Saw 3 is that I also enjoy the twist ending of this one. I don't know if, where I scale it in the twist endings of Saw. I definitely like the second one better than the first 3. I definitely like the second one better than this, just like I liked it better than the first film, but I don't know where this one stacks against the ending of the first film. It's pretty close. I like the fact that this one really pulls the rug out from under you, and even though you think you're seeing the test of this character, this grieving father, the entire thing is actually an orchestrated test for Amanda to test whether or not she can give up this murderous rage that she has, because the movie opens up with a couple of traps where, people are basically put into traps that are unwinnable and they're just being murdered. And there's even callbacks to the other films, like the one thing that I was bitching about with Saw, where they put the fucking key in the bathtub with Lee Winnell's character and there's no way for him to win that trap because the shit goes down the drain. They kind of give an explanation for that in this one. It's an explanation that I like, even though I still hold the first film accountable for that because it didn't know that Saw 3 was going to exist. I like the fact that they wrote that in there, they realized that there was a little bit of a plot hole there, and they fixed it in a very smart way. I also like the fact it kind of expands even further to where this guy is actually the husband of the nurse that they've been holding captive the entire time, so their fates are interlocked, and then Jigsaw basically lets Amanda choose the fate of all 4 of them, and it kind of goes down in a big bloodbath. Now moving on to my negatives, this film actually has kind of a weird pacing for me because it starts off very trap heavy. There's a lot of traps going on where you get the guy with all the chains, and then you get the detective chick who gets her ribs torn out, and then the movie stomps on the brakes and focuses on this dad character and slowly starts introducing his traps and his storyline. The movie kind of has to regain its pace again. And I never really, something I'm going to get into a little bit more, I never really got identified with the story regarding the nurse, even though I like seeing Tobin Bell and I like seeing Shawnee Smith. Her whole storyline never really grabbed me, so every time they cut back to her and they're focusing on her more than they are Jigsaw and Amanda, the movie kind of hits the brakes a little bit for me again. So it's kind of got a weird pace throughout the entire film, ramps up quite a bit back in the last 10-15 minutes like all of these films do, but as far as comparing it for the first 2 films, this one certainly has the weirdest and the weakest pacing of the 3 so far. It also is the one that feels the most repetitive and wash, rinse, repeat of all of them so far. And I'm sure it's probably going to get worse as it goes along, but Saw 3, by now, this concept for me feels a little bit played out. I am one of those people that feels like the first 2 films are pretty strong as a duology. This one's pretty good too. But that whole concept, the whole, the plans of Jigsaw and the lessons and the dialogue of him and just I'm smarter than everybody and I'm morally above all of you, and the way that the traps fill out and the testing of the characters and the twist ending thing that kind of becomes a trope of this franchise. It feels played out a little bit by this one. It's still not to the point where it's annoying, but it's to the point where it's noticeable. And this is the first film of the 3 that is noticeable. Now, I kind of hinted at it a little bit, but to talk a little bit more in depth, I don't think that either of the 2 main people that are being tested are all that likable or all that engaging. You have the husband and you have the wife, which you don't find out to the end are both, mother and father of this kid that died, and their fates are interlocked and they were actually husband and wife. But these 2 characters, the nurse and the dad, even though the traps are cool and the concept of the grieving father having to forgive people, and this nurse that has to keep Jigsaw alive, or otherwise, his heartbeat is tied to her heartbeat quite literally. Those are interesting concepts. Those characters don't really do anything for me though. So when you have Amanda, when you have Jigsaw, they certainly take all of my interest, and I don't have any left over for these 2 characters.
Hello, Jeff. Over the past few years, you have become a shell of your former self.
consumed with hatred and vengeance.
This is also the first film where the plausibility of Jigsaw's intellect and planning and being able to set all the pieces in perfect motion starts to come into question a little bit. Like the whole thing about him setting everything up to where he knows which of these traps the father is going to survive, and there's even a point in one of the traps where he's supposed to take a shotgun blast and he just happens to be standing out of the way enough to where it hits somebody else. I mean, this much of a chance and he could have blown himself away and died right there and Jigsaw's plan would have went to shit. But this is the first film, and again, this is probably something I'm going to bitch about in some of the other films because it goes on to just a crazy length with what's going to be 8 films of this guy's plan over years. This is the first film where the plausibility of him being able to map out all the possible events and kind of steer everything exactly where he wants them to go. I can go along for the ride for it, but I'm kind of calling bullshit. And my final negative is this is a movie that definitely starts to put pieces in place to set up sequels. They knew they had a franchise at this point. They knew this was going to be a yearly Halloween staple, and they were going to keep going until the movie started to drop box office or drop, audience rating or critic rating. I don't know exactly where that peak was on these films. I'd be curious to find out, and we'll probably look that up once I'm done recording this, but Saw 3 has pieces throughout the film where you definitely see storyline that's going to be expanded later on, like his visions of this woman who's clearly his wife or his girlfriend. He's pouring wax over this tape. The whole thing that it ends on where everybody's about to die and it's like, oh, I'm the only one that knows who your daughter is and where she's at, and let the games begin. And you're like, fuck, okay, I guess that's where we're starting in Saw 4. When I get to the end of the series, maybe in hindsight, some of these little setups will make sense and they'll actually be kind of ingenious. I don't know, but just when I watch this one, after I've watched the first one, which is a very unique idea, the second one, which is a good concept and a good follow-up, and you get to this one where it really feels like they're just kind of being cocky about their franchise and they're just going to start throwing things in that they're going to explore, which in this first film here where they're starting to do that, I'm not really interested in the answers to those questions. To me, the intrigue kind of dies with Jigsaw, literally. It's something that stands out to me that just feels tacked on a bit in this film. But overall, guys, I do like Saw 3. This is one of those sequels that I do think has a cool little concept. It still has some juice running. I haven't fatigued on the franchise entirely yet. There's some things that start to fatigue me a bit, like the plausibility and kind of the rinse-repeat function of the setup of these movies, but the traps are gruesome. Like I said, possibly the most gruesome. I like some of the concepts involving like the themes and the lessons that Jigsaw is going to teach us this round, and having Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith take much more of a prominent role and be much more the kind of main characters and the main focus of the storyline, I thought helped this one out quite a bit. So if you're still enjoying the Saw franchise and you want to see where things go with the third chapter, prepare for more torture, more blood, and more pain, as well as some more Jigsaw and Amanda in a third film that actually holds its own pretty well. So check this thing out online and stream it. So what do you guys think of Saw 3? Is this one your favorite? Do you not like this one? Do you feel like there's a later sequel that tops this one quite a bit? That would be an interesting answer to my question, because I don't know which of these further sequels I'm looking forward to very much. I feel like I remember it going on a steep decline from here, but we will see. Let me know your thoughts on Saw 3 down below. Please like and share this video if you enjoyed it. If you want to hit that subscribe button and check out the rest of this franchise, I would greatly appreciate it, and I will see you later. But before I go, remember as always, opinions are like assholes. That doesn't mean that you have to be.